fishing. People, when you're in the mood, let's go fishing. Well, it's just me and you. Head on down to the fishing hole. Grab your hat, get your pole. Let's go fishing when you're in the mood.
Canadian Sport Fishing, brought to you in part by Ford Trucks, built Ford tough. Lucky Strike, producers of quality fishing tackle and landing nets since 1929. Rapala, premium fishing gear, crafted from experience. Canadian Power and Sail Squadrons, volunteers teaching safe boating.
Let's go fishing whenever you're in the mood. Let's go fishing. Baby, it's just me and you. Head on down to the fishing hole. You wanna grab your hat, man, and get your pole. Let's go fishing when you're in the mood.
You know, when it comes to fishing bass ponds especially, whether they're small or big, a lot of times you have to find out whether the bass will come up on the surface, whether they'll feed subsurface, or whether you have to fish on the bottom. And a lot of time that's determined by what the bass feed on. Now in this particular pond, the fish are just eating natural food, they're not fed. So depending if there's a lot of frogs around this pond, the bass should come up on the surface and hit a surface lure. Now what I'm going to experiment with here, this is called a skitter walk and it's made by Rapala. And you can see that it's pretty clear in that there's an actual weight inside. I'm going to move it back and forth. Now that weight makes a sound. You can hear it when it goes back and forth. But more importantly, when you cast, the weight is at the back of the lure, so it helps the lure cast farther, much like the long cast or palomino. And when it's sitting on the water, the nose of it sticks up out of the water, which gives the fish a good target to hit at. Now I'm using this with a Rapala rod. It's a long cast rod, 6-pound test long cast line, and a Penn 2000 spinning reel. Now we're going to see if these fish are going to come up for surface lures or not. And really this is trial and error. If you read about surface lure fishing, they tell you that you should wait until the lure, the rings that the lure makes, disappears. Now that's what's called being too quick on setting the hook. I should have let that fish take it. But what happens is, when you let a lure sit there, because this lure actually hangs in the water, sometimes it produces a tantalizing fish action. They can't resist. So I'm going to wait here and watch. Okay, we got our cooperate fish here. Now, wheelies stay on. Good fighters. You know, I answer a lot of Ask Italo questions for people that don't have boats and that fish from shore. And they say, you know, where can I go shore fishing and catch fish? And I'll tell you, it's so much fun to find spots where you can fish from shore, canals. Now look at this. This guy was hooked perfectly. He's not hurt at all. That bass is very healthy. He's about, I'd say, 13 or 14 inches, about 14 inches, probably weighs about 1.25 pounds. Healthy largemouth. And you can see all the slop here, where I'm going to release this guy. Just going to let him go in there. Sometimes during the day, the fish will go underneath this heavy cover, and you can't use surface lures. You have to use plastic worms, or even twisters that are rigged weedless, and just drop it in the pockets. But right now, I'm just trying to comb for these aggressive fish. And I'm going to make a long cast, again, right down this canal. I'll tell you, this is excellent. It's so quiet here and peaceful, and it would be nice to get a long-range fish to hit. This is a very pretty pond, Karl, but it's not that big.
No, I keep it that size so I can better operate it, you know, because you have to net the fish out and you have better control what's in it to feed them and so on. Depends on what kind of fish you want to have in your pond. You know, if the deeper the pond, or if you have water running in that's cold enough, you can have trout. Otherwise, I would recommend warm water species like bass, and you know, and supporting fish to feed the bass, which are on the top of the food chain.
Okay, now will these fish survive the winter?
Yes. And so if the water is more than 8 feet deep, bass survive beautiful.
Okay, so if someone has a piece of land, maybe only a couple of acres, and they wanted to do a small pond like this, how do they know which fish they can put in it? I can see the bass, they're nice size. Would trout survive in this pond?
They could put a few trout in this particular pond in because it has some cold springs and some deeper areas, but you couldn't put very many in. See, it all depends on the circumstances, you know. Some people, when they dig a pond, they hit a good spring, but spring water doesn't have any oxygen. So in the winter time, they might have to supplement it with aeration and so on.
Now, do you feed these bass?
No, I establish a whole food chain in this pond here. I try to imitate a natural lake and so on a
Now, would you
small
encourage
basis.
people that have ponds to do that as opposed to getting their fish fed every day?
Yes.
But maybe putting in crayfish or leeches? Or,
Yes.
And you have minnows that you raise here for
Yeah,
people for their
yeah,
ponds?
That's why I sell them the whole ecosystem.
Good.
You know, because the pond should feed your fish and not you should feed the pond, because the more feed you put in and the excrement of the fish then will over time pollute your pond. You get more algae blooms in, which can be detrimental to the fish. Good. But if the pond feeds the fish take the nutrients out of the pond, and you have a healthy system for years and years on end.
Okay, let's go to some of the other ponds. This is a beautiful pond. Now, the other ones are more in the open, right?
Yeah.
Just going to let those rings go away. We have perfect conditions. The air temperature is probably about 27 degrees Celsius. Nice light breeze. No bugs. And that's very good. A lot of times when you find spots like this for bass, mosquitoes are a real problem. And it's not even the mosquitoes that I worry about, it's the deer flies that take chunks out of you. But this is very pleasant. Look at that nice snake action. I'll be quiet so you can hear this lure. Boy, what an action. Beautiful hit. I actually saw that fish come up. I mean, with that good of action, how can a bass resist it? It looks so real. This guy's got, again, just one treble hook. One hook actually of the treble, which is nice. Now, Rapala is using VMC hooks on their newest lures. And this skitter walk is rigged with 2 treble hooks, and they are very sharp. So you have to be careful. And make sure when you're holding a bass like this by the lower jaw, that you have a good grip. Because if this fish shakes, you want to make sure you can get your hand away from the lure real quick. Okay, so there's the lure out. Beautiful, healthy, largemouth. They're such camouflage colors and a good sized mouth. You know, for about a 13.5 to 14-inch fish, you can see that it's got a pretty big head. Again, I'm just going to get it in the water nice and quickly here and release it in the slot. There he goes.
Pumped up, man.
Okay,
Here
go.
we are.
All right, go.
Oh, man, it was great, man. I enjoy that there dolly varden fishing. The thing I like about the championships is I got the opportunity to catch nice fish like them dollies. That and the competition level is just great. It's something that I enjoy to do, and I get out there every day and just love fishing. And the Vanderplu, the master angler, High River, Alberta, Canada. Just give me a call, 1-403-652-7308 and 540-8872.
And you too could catch dollies like this.
Yeah, and you can catch dollies just like that, man.
If you've been watching our programs, no matter where we've been fishing, whether it's shore fishing or fishing out of a boat, we've been stressing boat and water safety. And you probably know, if you operate a motorboat, that very soon everyone will have to be qualified. They're going to have to get a pleasure craft efficiency card or an operator card. And some of the questions that are on the test have to do with your own safety. So for example, did you know that if you're in a boat and it capsizes or even sinks, the first thing everyone should do is don life jackets. Secondly, you should make sure that you have a count of everybody if there's 3 or 4 people in the boat. And if the boat does go under completely, you try to cling to anything that's floating, any debris or any other type of material. Tips like that can actually save your life. And if you want to get more information on some of the questions that's on the test, you can go to our www.canadian-sportfishing website, or you can contact the Canadian Power and Sail Squadron, and they'll also have all the information, and you can study online or in a classroom and then write a test in the classroom. That way you're going to be safe when you're on the water. When most people think of raising fish, they think of glamorous fish like bass and trout, and maybe even some exotic species like char Atlantic salmon. But you know what? Karl Dickob, who operates the Kinmount Fish Farms, raises about 30 different types of fish. And one that's pretty important is panfish. And I'm talking about bluegill or sunfish, and that's what's in this pond, right?
That's right. And I personally haven't eaten them yet, but I hear a lot of people
very
they
good
say if you do them on the barbecue, they're just beautiful.
Oh yeah. Why don't we scoop some? Because I'd like to see how big these are.
Okay.
Are they tough to catch?
I hope not.
Wow, you did pretty good. Let's hold them in the water here. We don't want to keep them out too long.
These are some small sunfish and bluegills. They're a little bit hard to keep apart, but if you look closely, some of them, they're really bluish, and these are the bluegills, and the other ones a little bit more yellowish, and these are the sunfish. And then it's the big one there that's naturally easily distinguishable, that's pumpkin seed.
Okay, now how old are the little guys?
The little guys, they're from last fall.
Now, would people buy the smaller ones or mix like smaller and larger ones for their ponds?
If they only have sunfish or one sunfish in the pond, then they can start with the small sunfish. But when people buy a bass from me, they usually buy some small sunfish to have immediate food source for your bass, and they buy larger ones so that they breed and have a continuity of feed.
Now, when the panfish, like the bluegill and sunfish, breed, are they like other fish species where they only breed at a certain time of the year, or can the people get young fry throughout the season?
Well, they start both spawning bass and bluegills and sunfish around the same time when the water warms up to 16, 18 degrees. But the sunfish, they keep on spawning through the whole summertime until late fall when the temperature goes below 22, 23 or 65 degree Fahrenheit.
I'm curious to see the trout ponds. Those are up further, right on the hill?
They're always at the source of the water. See, I reuse the water to make it economic.
Good,
See?
That's smart. Ooh, big boil. Maybe I should have let it just sit there. Come on, big fellow. That's a big tasty treat. Come and try some. Oh, what a hit. Yeah, that's how you know it's a bigger fish. I think that fish was following, and I'm trying to reel. I've got my drag set a little loose. Good size fish. Because of the light line. Now remember, this is a 6-pound test. I would not, oh, it's a surprise. That's a walleye. This is awesome. Who says walleyes don't feed on the surface? What an aggressive fish. I got to tell Rapala that the skitter walk works good on big walleye too. Look at this. Beautiful fish. Now, I don't think I'm going to lip this guy because they've got a few more teeth. I did bring a small landing net. This is going to be funny. I brought my panfish net. Which part of the fish do I want to put in the net? The head, maybe? Look at this. You could call this Disney fishing. You know why? Because the net is Mickey Mouse. Look. It's a little bit small for this size of walleye. There we go, and nice walleye. Bet you that fish will probably go about 3 pounds. And I'm going to get him into the water. You know, a lot of people think that walleye won't feed in the middle of the day, especially when you have clear water. But see, walleye that are close to weeds, like look at the vegetation here, will get very aggressive. They won't spend a lot of time in shallower water, but they will venture into water even 4 or 5 feet deep. Now he's ready to go. There he goes. Now, was that a surprise? You probably haven't seen this lure before, and I'll tell you, it is a good lure. It's made by Rapala, and it's called a skitter walk. And this particular one is like a chub color. If you look at it over here, it looks like a solid color, but it's really clear. And there's that weight that goes back and forth that acts as a rattle, but also helps you when you cast, and then keeps the lure hanging in the water in that position. So I thought that was a nice bass when it swirled at it, but it ended up being a really nice walleye.
We went fishing in the Saskatchewan River. We went fishing down by the minnow trap. I caught it with a minnow, and my dad netted it, and we put it in the live well.
Fantastic. What are you going to do with the goldeye?
We were going to take it down to Winnipeg and get it smoked for my dad's friends.
Look at all those trout swarming over that net. We're here at Kinmount Fish Farms, and I have Karl Dickob, who's the owner, with me, and he's telling us all about the different aspects of aquaculture. And what he's done here, he's put some liver in a net because we wanted to look at some of these trout close up. And these are brookies. Karl, how many fish do you have in this pond?
It's roughly between 10 and 15,000. You never know exactly because I'm feeding at the same time the kingfishers and the blue herons.
Right, right.
Maybe I'm an idiot, but I like nature.
It's natural, so I think that's wonderful. It just amazes me because this pond looks like it's about 8 feet wide and only about maybe 70, 100 feet long.
Nice.
How deep is it?
That's about 8 feet.
And it has that many trout in it?
Yeah.
Okay, why don't we lift the net up so we can look at these brookies? You're a good fisherman. Okay, we'll keep them in the water because we don't want them to
Oh, they're not
under
suffocating
stress.
that quickly.
No, I'm going to keep them in here. Now, how old are these brookies?
They hatched in mid to end January.
They're beautiful. Now, how big will they be when people actually purchase them? Will they stock them this small?
Well, most of my brook trout I stock in the fall. I found out that's the most efficient way to stock them in the lakes because brook trout, they adapt very well, especially when they're grown in natural ponds. They go after whatever is live.
Now, Karl, did you actually raise these fish here, or did you get the eggs from a lake or from somebody else?
Yeah, say, I used to have my own brood stock, but the brood stock we have in most private hatchery is not the greatest.
Right.
So I get my eggs from the ministry. I not agree all the time with them, but they have great possibilities and fish.
Now, these are from a hatchery. Where do they get the eggs?
They get the eggs originally from Lake Nipigon and some of the other, which is known for the best brook trout lakes in the province. The first ones that I will sell is the middle of September, and by next year, May, they will be all gone.
And how big will they be by September?
By September, they will be around 5 to 8 inches, and by next spring, by mid-April or so, you have them already up to 10, 11 inches.
If someone wants to stock their ponds or lakes, are they better off waiting till the fish are larger to ensure their survival, or doesn't matter?
No, see, a lot depends on the economics too. If you stock a lake, you put 1,000, 1,500 fish in, you're better off stocking them when they're about 6, 8 inches, and they have, with my experience, a very good survival rate. That's why everybody buys them from me then. Sure. The larger ones, you know, you pay about $2, $3 or more for a fish, and it's not necessary. They grow just as well in the lake.
Karl, you're a gentleman, and you sure know a lot about aquaculture. You've only been doing it for what, 30 years, 40 years?
Yeah, just about that or longer.
Now, you have a challenge for me. You said that there's some fish there that probably aren't catchable, right? They won't hit lures?
That's right.
Okay, well, I'm up for the challenge. So you just show me where the water is.
That's why I'm challenging you.
Because part of my job is to teach people how to catch fish, and if they can't catch the fish in their ponds, you know, we got to help them out.
Right.
Okay.
That's the right attitude.
Show me the way.
Okay.
Nice fish. Good hit again. Oh, it's gonna jump, but it decided to go below surface. Now you can see I'm not reeling in against the drag, even though you can hear the drag. And that's a very good tip. It's okay if you hear the drag when you're pulling back with your rod, but you should never reel in against the drag, because then that means that the line is stationary and the spool is going around, and what happens then, the line gets twisted. Aren't largemouth great for jumping out of the water? And I got to be careful because this guy had 2 hooks in his mouth. Now he's only got 1 and I don't want to hurt him. So I just took that hook that was just dangling in its mouth and got it out of there. Because sometimes when a fish starts thrashing on shore, it'll get hooked again by a second hook. I'm just glad that these fish aren't being hooked really deep because they're not being hurt at all. This is just on the soft tissue. There. That's probably a good 13¼ inches. I've handled a few bass, so it's pretty easy to guess the size. You can see they're being released unharmed. They're happy fish. Very important to check your line. Make sure there's no tangles. I'm using a snap, so I've got to make sure there's no weeds. Because a lot of times if you get anything in front of the lure where the eyelet is, because the slip is so small, it can really hinder the lure from swimming properly. And I'm also using a very lightweight snap.
Canadian Sport Fishing has been brought to you in part by Ford Trucks, built Ford tough. Lucky Strike, producers of quality fishing tackle and landing nets since 1929. Rapala, premium fishing gear, crafted from experience. Canadian Power and Sail Squadrons, volunteers teaching safe boating.